My name is Camille Hayes. I'm 36, and tonight I made the mistake of bringing the man I love to meet my family at a fundraiser full of handshakes, champagne, and enemies dressed as blood. I wore sapphire silk, heels that didn't shake, and a smile I practiced in the car. Noah, my partner, my calm in every storm, held my hand as we walked in. He didn't know what was coming. Neither did I. Because minutes after we sat down, my cousin Mitchell tapped the microphone, grinned, and said loud enough for the room to hush, "Ever wonder what Camille really does? 'Cause I did some digging, and what I found might just ruin your appetite." I didn't blink. I just placed my wine glass down and waited for the burn. Growing up, I was the one who didn't fit the family frame. They were lawyers, politicians, debaters who loved the sound of their own voices echoing through marble foyers. I was the quiet girl who asked questions no one wanted to answer, the one who disappeared into books about war strategy while everyone else practiced their campaign smiles. Mitchell, he was the golden boy, Harvard Law, fast-talking, crowd-pleasing, and perfectly coiffed since age 15. Our grandmother once said he could charm the devil out of hell. Me, I was the cousin they forgot to introduce. The ghost who sent postcards without return addresses. The name they only brought up when something went wrong and they needed someone to blame. I learned early, silence wasn't weakness, it was protection. Because the more they didn't know, the less they could touch. Even Noah, the man sitting beside me now, only knew pieces. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I knew what truth costs when it's handed to the wrong hands. And as Mitchell flipped through his folder of grainy photos and half-truths, I realized he hadn't come to ask me anything. He came to burn me, publicly, permanently, before I could speak for myself. The projector screen dropped behind him with a soft, mechanical hum. And Mitchell, my cousin, my blood, smiled like a man about to serve justice when all he really craved was applause. Slide 1, a photo of me stepping out of a nondescript government building. No signage, no timestamp, just shadows and implication. Slide 2, me in a parking garage retrieving a dry cleaning bag. The collar of my uniform barely visible, reflected under the plastic. Someone gasped. Not from what they saw, but because someone made them look. Mitchell's voice floated over the crowd, syrup slick and smug. No LinkedIn, no business registry, no tax record. You ever meet a consultant who leaves no footprint? Laughter, uneasy, scattered, but loud enough. He paced a little. Theater. Let's call it what it is. Camille Hayes isn't working. She's hiding. And I, for one, think the voters deserve to know if there's a fraud in the family, especially when she's sitting at the head table. I didn't move. I didn't speak, because I knew what he didn't. Some truths don't explode. They detonate quietly in the right hands. Noah shifted beside me, confused, concerned, his fingers brushing mine. I met his eyes, and in that look I said, "Hold still." The storm isn't his, it's mine. The room went still, forks halfway to mouths, laughter turning sour in people's throats. Even the string quartet trailed off mid-note, unsure if this was part of the program. Mitchell stood center stage, soaking it in, the kind of silence narcissists mistake for respect. He held up one last photo like it was a closing argument. His voice dropped to a dramatic hush. "Camille, if you have nothing to hide, why is your name redacted from 6 different contracts linked to federal intel contractors? Or are we supposed to believe that's just a coincidence?" He turned to the crowd. "Because I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in transparency. Especially when someone brings a stranger into our family and expects us to clap." He gestured to Noah. Noah blinked, not angry, not embarrassed, just steady. Like he was watching a puzzle fall into place, piece by jagged piece. I opened my mouth not to defend myself, but to warn him, too late. The bartender, who'd been polishing glasses near the corner all night, raised a hand to his right ear, removed a thin black earpiece, spoke into his cuff. "Director Hayes, we're ready." Mitchell frowned. Then 4 other figures moved, from opposite ends of the room. Dark suits, tight coordination, subtle no longer. They formed a line behind me, and in one clean motion, the lead agent stepped forward and addressed the room. Camille Hayes is the Director of Counterintelligence, Federal Division. Tier 7 clearance. Active leadership over 3 domestic threat protocols. You've just interfered with a live operation. You could hear someone's champagne flute hit the floor, not shatter, just land. Wrong. Mitchell's face drained to ash. He stumbled over his words. She never told us, I stood, straightened my dress, turned to face him. You never asked. Mitchell took a step back, then another, like distance could undo what had just detonated in front of him. The lead agent didn't shout. He didn't need to. Mr. Mitchell Hayes, you've conducted unauthorized surveillance on a federal officer, distributed classified adjacent imagery, and publicly interfered with a Tier 7 security asset during an active clearance window. That last part hit harder than any slap because it didn't just mean embarrassment. It meant prison time. Mitchell looked at me not with regret but desperation. A child caught with matches in a burned-down room. Camille, I didn't know. Exactly, I said. You didn't know, but you spoke anyway. Noah stood behind me now. He hadn't said a word, not because he was afraid, but because he understood. His silence wasn't uncertainty, it was reverence. The agents moved in. Mitchell resisted. This is a mistake. She lied to us for years. One of the agents raised an eyebrow. And yet you spent how many months digging into her? You had full intent, full malice, no clearance. Mitchell tried one last angle. I'm family. I looked him in the eye and said what needed to be said. You used our blood like a weapon. You turned curiosity into a spotlight, then aimed it like a gun. Family doesn't do that. The cuffs clicked behind his back. This time, not mine. Around the room, people avoided my eyes. Uncles, aunts, cousins who once called me weird or off or just not very ambitious. Grandmother Alina didn't move, didn't blink, just watched, and Noah, he stepped beside me, took my hand in his. You didn't flinch, he whispered. Not once. I squeezed his fingers. I stopped flinching a long time ago. 3 weeks later, the room was smaller. No chandeliers, no champagne. Just a steel conference table and a seal on the wall that didn't need introduction. Camille Hayes, director, dress uniform. Not for drama, for clarity. The door opened. 2 federal marshals escorted Mitchell inside. No tie, no cufflinks. Just a gray suit that looked too big on a man who used to fill every room with noise. He didn't speak. Didn't sit until told. I slid a dossier across the table. Pages of evidence. Every call he made. Every surveillance contractor. He paid under the table. Every message he sent, calling me dead weight with secrets. This, I said, is what you did. He didn't look up. You didn't just embarrass me at a dinner. You compromised an operation. 2 of my agents had to be pulled from active duty within hours of your stunt. One didn't make it out. He blinked, that's all. I didn't mean. But you did, I cut in. You meant to wound, and now you're bleeding people you'll never even meet. His voice cracked. I was jealous. Of what? Your silence, your certainty, the way Grandma looked at you like she knew you were more than all of us. I wanted to drag you down just so I could understand what it felt like to stand above you, just once. I didn't look away, not because I was angry, but because I wasn't. I'm recommending prosecution, I said, calm as a clock ticking. No family favors, no reduced sentence. You'll answer like any other civilian who jeopardized national security. He nodded. No defense, no more speeches. For once, Mitchell Hayes had nothing left to say. The call came 2 nights later. Private line. Unknown number, but I knew who it was before I answered. Grandmother Alina. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Not frail, just measured, like someone weighing every word. I saw the broadcast, she said. I saw Mitchell, I saw you. She didn't ask for details, didn't beg me to forgive. She just breathed, then said, I'm not calling for him, I'm calling for you because I watched my grandson try to humiliate you, and I watched you stay still. Not because you were afraid, but because you knew exactly who you were. My throat tightened, not from grief, not from anger, from something quieter. Something I hadn't let myself feel in years, recognition. You deserved better than we gave you, she added. I know that now. I leaned back in my chair. The office was dark, just the blinking cursor of an unsaved file glowing on my screen. I'm not coming back for Christmas, I said gently. I didn't think you would, she replied. But I wanted to hear your voice and let you know I see you now and I'm proud. The line clicked. I stared out the window, city lights below. Noah asleep on the couch, jacket folded, tie loosened like he'd finally exhaled too. I didn't wake him, just sat there for a moment and let it settle. Not victory, not revenge, peace. So when people ask me about that night, the fundraiser, the folder, the arrest, I don't talk about the handcuffs or the silence, or even the badge that never left my coat pocket. I tell them this. There is power in not proving yourself to people who never asked who you were. There is clarity in letting their ignorance collapse under its own weight. And there is freedom in standing, not above them, but beyond them. Mitchell tried to expose a lie, but what he uncovered was a truth he never deserved to hold. Mine, and I wear it now not as armor, but as legacy, not loud, not flashy, but undeniable. I was about to shut down the office lights when I noticed a small envelope on the desk, not marked, not labeled, but in Noah's handwriting. Inside, a photo, not of us, of my ID badge, folded behind it a note, just 5 words, no spotlight, still choosing you. I turned. He stood in the doorway, tie loose, shirt untucked, but his eyes, clear, steady, unshaken. Camille, he said softly, I didn't come into your life hoping for a perfect picture. I came in hoping to be part of the one you were already painting. He stepped closer, no ring box, no grand speech, just his hand reaching for mine. So if someday you want me there, not just beside you, but legally, stubbornly, permanently, then let's call this what it is. A proposal, no fanfare, just truth. I didn't say yes. I just kissed him, and that was enough. Because after everything, the betrayal, the silence, the cuffs, the clearance, the only thing that ever asked me nothing but offered everything was him. That's the legacy I keep now. Not just ranks and ribbons, but a hand that never squeezed too tight and a love that never asked me to shrink. Director Camille Hayes, federal, private, loved, in that order, exactly how it should be.